Welcome to Offscreen. This week we're reading Jackpot by Dave Callaham. After a group of bumbling teachers win a large amount of money, their greed and incompetence put them on a hilarious path toward death and destruction.
Have you looked up anything about Mr.
Dave,
Callaham?
Mr. Callaham. So, firstly, this is based on a 2011 Norwegian film, or at least it's adapted from the screenplay of that film.
Right, I think it's the first time we've seen a screenplay adapted from another screenplay.
Right.
I don't know if you can even use the word adapted. I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, why
I
not?
guess so.
You can adapt a book.
Because it's not just like a translation. It's like a straight up new reworking of it.
Well, we don't necessarily know that.
I would guess. It's not just...
What if he translated it word by word?
And then he got on the blacklist
What if he just threw it into Google Translate?
Maybe that should be the game. Somebody should do that. Just take a bunch of famous scripts in other languages, translate them, and try and sell them in Hollywood.
He probably didn't even... Google Translate now, the app? You can hold it up to something. Like if you hold it up to text like this, it'll translate it. So on your phone, and it'll say like jackpot in Norwegian.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So maybe he didn't even type it. He just screenshotted it a lot and then printed it out.
Maybe we shouldn't assume the worst of him. Although apparently,
I don't know if that'd be the worst. It'd be pretty industrious,
I suppose. His IMDb picture is just like him screaming. It's like a close up of his face screaming.
But he has quite the list of credits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his first was a screenplay for Doom, and then The Expendables.
He's done all the Expendables.
He has a story credit for... Well, no, he's just attributed characters. He has a story credit for Godzilla. He's writing the sequel to Zombieland, Mortal Kombat. So, pretty decent.
Huh. Those are all pretty
type things.
Yeah, those are all pretty like hard action movies. Like this is much more of a... I mean, it's still like a R-rated comedy, very violent.
It's more lighthearted.
Yeah.
I didn't know The Rock was in Doom.
Neither did I.
Kind of want to see it now.
Please, he prefers Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Has he even phased out the Rock?
I'm not sure.
At this point?
I don't know. I guess that's neither here nor there. Do you want to...
Okay, yeah, I'll get to the summary. 6 high school staff members pool their money together to bet on a football game and end up winning $500,000. But when their drunken celebration gets out of hand, they accidentally kill Senor Rubenstein, the Spanish teacher. In the process of hiding his body, the remaining 5 begin to turn on one another, either out of greed or paranoia over getting caught. In a climactic shootout at the local Applebees, only 2 teachers are left standing. Former high school sweethearts, Trey and Laura, are now embittered exes. Or so we think. It's only after the police let them go for lack of evidence that we realize they've been duping everyone, purposely playing the other teachers against one another, assuming, correctly, that they would each kill each other off, leaving Trey and Laura to make off with $500,000 all by themselves. Still very much in love, the two of them skip town, embarking on a new life together.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I guess they didn't start scheming together until after... one person, at least, was dead.
Yeah, that's true.
And Rubenstein, the Spanish teacher, they tied him up because he was being an obnoxious prick and, like, yelling racist shit at people out the window.
Right, because he got really drunk.
And then he was trying to...
He's trying to escape his bonds, basically, and he accidentally fell out of a window.
Yeah. It's like a whole barrage of stupidity.
Yeah.
By these characters.
Yeah, you were saying it was reminding you of The Usual Suspects. I would say in some ways it reminds me of The Lady Killers. Oh,
that I haven't seen. Actually, the one Coen Brothers movie.
Well, if you don't see one of the Coen Brothers movies, it should probably be that one. It's not their best, but it's a bunch of bumbling people who they steal a bunch of money and end up dying one by one throughout. It's very similar.
So that's a remake, huh?
Yeah.
Have you seen the OG one?
Nope.
No, yeah, me neither. Yeah, it's a bunch of dumb people doing dumb stuff. Yeah. It's really a clusterfuck of stupidity.
Wow, okay. So
I don't mean that as a negative, I just mean these characters are really, really dumb.
Yeah. They're not all at least like just similarly stupid. They have some actual distinguishing characteristics.
Yeah.
Um,
They're dumb in different ways.
Yeah, which is really, that is important.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, it would just, every character would be the same, and they'd be doing stupid stuff in the same stupid way, and it'd be really frustrating.
Although, I did think Trey and Laura were a little bit...
No, they weren't as
lacking.
dumb.
And, well, they weren't as dumb, but they weren't as distinct as characters to me either. The way the whole, like, framing device of the story works is we're seeing all of this told through the eyes of Trey and Laura, who are being interrogated by the police. And so you kind of get a lot of cutting back and forth between the two of them, and sometimes their stories differ a little bit, particularly when they're talking about the other one, because, like I said, they're trying to pretend like they don't like each other, when really they are still in love and they're actually playing everyone. But anyway, my point is, it cuts back and forth between them a lot, and I lost track sometimes. I couldn't tell like which one of them was talking. If you're
I thought it was quite effective, though. It was like really seamless transitions between the two.
Yeah, there are a lot of really good moments of intercutting where it's really clever. Like, one of them will begin a sentence, and then they'll cut, and the other one kind of finishes it.
Or objects to that very sentence.
Right, and it's almost like they're talking to each other, but it's really cutting between two different scenes.
Yeah, it's almost like a like couples therapy, kind of.
Yeah.
But
so that was cool, and it did make it move really fast and everything, but... sometimes I am reading down the page pretty quickly, and I won't always be looking at the character names for every single line. And there were times where I could not tell, or I lost track of which one of the two of them it was, which I think speaks to the fact that their voices are not particularly distinct. But that's okay. That's fair, yeah. Small qualm.
We don't really learn much about them as characters, even over the course of all of this.
Right.
It's mostly just the plot mechanics of the Fallout.
Yeah.
The screenplay opens with the shootout at an Applebees.
Right.
And then they're taken into custody then, and then
when we
recount everything,
right.
And then at the very end we get back to present day.
Very common sort of device to use. And
very usual suspects.
Yeah.
I thought the opening scene was very distractingly written.
Really?
I was a little confused.
The shootout at the Applebee's?
Yeah, like with the music overhead, and
I thought it was funny. I liked it, but I think specifically just because they throw in a lot of Applebee's terminology about the different like menu items, which are all flying everywhere because of the shootout.
But that's really just food flying around, right?
Not drinks. Fine.
No, but I mean, like, it doesn't matter that they're riblets. They're just going to register on screen.
I know, but I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Because they have stupid names for everything, like sizzling double barrel whiskey sirloin. And baby back ribs, or riblets, I guess.
Sorry. What's stupid about that?
About riblets?
About riblets? About double barrel whiskey sirloins that are sizzling?
They're just... Applebee's tries so hard to make their dishes sound kitschy and fun.
They do a damn fine job.
Are you a fan of Applebee's?
No, it's actually pretty bad. But I did watch in 2008 Game 1 of the NBA Finals at an Applebee's, and the Celtics won. It was a great game.
Well, you're not far from these characters. They were watching the football game that they were betting on.
And they're morons because they should have hedged the shit out of that when they won. Also, first of all, winning... What they did is like next to impossible. That's like very, very, very uncommon. Okay. But they should have hedged and guaranteed a profit. What if you got 15 right and then you lost the second one? You got nothing.
Right.
And you lost the 16th and you got nothing.
Right.
You could have locked in $250K there easy.
The whole thing was very dubious, partly because, and I thought this was stupid, they make a point of saying what each of them teaches, which, first of all, never really comes into play, and I was hoping it would, like, oh, this guy is a math teacher, or it's the girl, Laura, who's a math teacher, so she's gonna use that skill to some, and I don't know.
Well, to be fair, she is the one that can do simple division.
That's all that happens, but...
Yeah, the rest of them, I thought it was pretty funny, the rest of them, like, couldn't divide 500 by 5.
Right. But like, first of all, it's Trey that comes up with this whole betting scheme. I thought it would have made more sense if it was the math teacher, Laura, to come up with it. Mm-hmm. But none of them use any of their other teacher skills to their benefit.
I don't even remember what Trey did. What sort of...
He was an English teacher.
Oh, they all have like one line about it. Like Trey corrects someone's grammar at some point.
Right, that's true. Okay. But that's not anything that actually helps drive the really plot. Matters.
No, it does maybe set up the funniest part, I thought.
Which was,
there's a substitute teacher as one of the 6 original people.
Right.
And he like starts running his mouth about their big score. So they're interrogating him, and the coach, who happens to be like the football coach, the PE teacher,
right.
He has him in a sleeper chokehold. And Tammy, who is... Should we Tammy is the person that restocks the vending machines.
She's like a maintenance person.
Yeah. And she's like encouraging the coach. And she says, "What did you tell him, you little masturbator?" Which is so out of the blue. Wait, it's pretty funny.
Okay, yeah.
And then immediately after that, Laura says, "Stop it, you're going to kill him." And then the coach says, "I've been training UFC for 20 years. I'm a fucking expert at this shit. I'm not going to kill him." Smash 2. That one sub dead on the floor.
Right.
Coach Dell killed him. Yeah. I laughed out loud at that.
I thought that was really funny too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how one of them dies, because the first one, it is kind of just an accident. But then the coach chokes the substitute to death. And then Tammy, the maintenance lady, ends up just straight up stabbing the coach.
Yes.
And then I think Tammy dies in the shootout. Tammy dies in the
shootout. Tammy dies after trying to take the money from the coach.
Right.
And the coach slaps her, and then she stabs him with her keys in the stomach, and he bleeds out. Well, I thought it was funny how the coach, his game plan for every like situation was to do like the most fucked up like movie-ish thing, like, oh, we need to dissolve this body in acid, or we need to run it through a wood chipper,
or we need to Weekend at Bernie's him.
Yeah,
that was their solution for the substitute or no, that was for the Spanish teacher.
Yeah,
the coach is like, yeah, we gotta like do a Weekend at Bernie's where we make it look like he's alive, so people see him and they see him somewhere where he's not with us. So that the last time that anyone sees him isn't with them. That would look suspicious.
Right.
So they like try to prop him up in his car, and they like drive his car into a lake. It's all really ridiculous. Yeah. The coach reminded me a little bit of like Walter in The Big Lebowski, where he's constantly just instigating more trouble, and like he's actually escalating the situation pretty much. He's just making it worse.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, and that will lead me to my other thing. So when they think that the coach has died because the maintenance lady like stabs him, they dump his body because they think he's dead, and they find out after the fact that he like owes money to this really sketchy dude named Nick the Tooth, who happens to be the owner of the Applebees, which is also kind of funny.
Yeah.
But so then when Nick the Tooth finds out what happened, he comes after the rest of the teachers, and they're gonna try and like arrange a meetup or something so that he can get the coach's share of the money. And so he's like on the phone with them, giving them instructions, and says to meet him at the Applebees. And Trey is like, the one in Theater Square, and Nick the Tooth is like, "You got a smartphone?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Go to Applebees.com. Go to the orange tab near the top, locations." And then Trey is like, I see the button for your Applebee's. No, that's the other orange button. And he's like instructing them how to use the stupid find an Applebee's thing on their website to meet up to exchange the money. I thought that was really funny. I don't think I sold it, but it's supposed to be like a very threatening phone call, but it devolves into him just telling them how to use the Applebee's website. Oh, here's not a funny scene, but I thought just one of the better scenes. Sort of towards the middle, they're all freaking out over what to do with, I don't even remember which person has just died. I think it's the substitute. And Laura kind of goes outside to take a breather, and she's just kind of standing outside crying, and these cops come by and see her, and they worry, like, is something going on here? And they start to question her, and Trey sees what's happening and worries that, she's gonna confess what happened, so he kind of intervenes, and as a cover story, he pretends to be like her abusive boyfriend, and they kind of play this whole little act for the cops where they make up and like everything's fine, and the cops can leave, but it pays off much later when you realize they really do have a history and they really are still together. And he even says, as he's like, faking it supposedly in front of these cops, he says like he still really loves her. And it says when he has that line, it says like, wow, that actually sounded really real. And we learn at the end that the reason it sounded real is because he really does still love her. That was very, very well done.
It was. And then immediately after that, they hatched their plan to get all of the money themselves.
Right. That is where you learn later that was the moment they decided to do it.
Their relationship, I mean, it's obvious from like the very beginning that there is like a relationship history between them.
Right.
And both of them in their separate interrogations are reluctant to talk about it.
Right.
Which kind of just sells it more to the police officer that's interrogating them. So I thought that was really effective.
Right. The cop really kind of takes a liking to both of them, which is partly why he lets them go, I guess. I don't know. The money, at that point, nobody knows where the money is. I don't know.
They're also witness to a bunch of crimes and probably guilty of...
Yeah, I'm sure...
by proxy, but they didn't really... They didn't kill anyone.
Right.
They did leave someone to die, which is pretty shitty.
They put one guy in a cider press.
Yeah.
That was how they got rid of one of the bodies.
So stupid, but pretty funny.
Yeah. And there's the whole conversation about, like, well, won't they figure it out when they start, like, pressing the cider? And then someone says, like, no, they're going to be too thirsty. They won't even think about it. And they're like, they're going to be drinking him. That's really messed up. They go through, like, a whole slew of really stupid ideas. And somehow that's, like, the least stupid one.
It's really almost like... Oh, but also, Tammy says they're going to be so excited for the cider, they're not going to know.
Right.
And then that's basically all the thought they give to it.
Yeah.
And they move on and they accept that as a plan.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, like... a parody of the stupidity of real criminals.
Yeah.
Like, criminals do a lot of dumb stuff. And maybe their thought processes are that shallow in some cases.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Another
plot point that we haven't mentioned, is it just Tammy? How do you say it?
Tammy.
Okay.
I mean, probably.
It's spelled weird. It's like...
T-A-M-I?
Yeah, but anyway.
Well, how would you say it?
I don't know. Tammy. Yeah, it's gotta be. Anyway, Tammy says that she has a nephew who can, like, help them kind of get rid of the evidence, because he's in a gang. And they're all like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds legit. Let's, like, get him over here. And her nephew comes over and he's like, I think he's like 18, but he's just like a scrawny, like, wannabe thug. And he's actually, as soon as he sees the body, he just, like, freaks out, which ends up being of no use, obviously, because now it's just like one more person knows what's going on, and he was no help. But he had a really funny line, I thought, because they were trying to explain to this kid, because they think he's gonna, like, help them dispose of the body. They're like, see, our friend here had a little bit of an accident. And the kid is like, but he just won all that money. Who has an accident right after they've won that much money? He should have been especially careful after that.
Right.
And he's just, like, clearly completely naive.
It's funny because the naivete and, like, the innocence that he exhibits is so contrary to how he's billed both by his aunt and by the police officer as this like really tough gangbanger.
So that was fun.
On a, I guess, kind of structural level, I liked their story got more and more absurd. And they each told that story consistently to the police.
Uh-huh.
And they told pretty much the whole truth the entire time.
Yeah.
And the police were continuing to fact check it, and it all came back positive.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty effective, pretty funny, and pretty effective.
I almost thought it became too preoccupied, the script did, with corroborating everything about the story.
I think it makes it more absurd. Like, all this ridiculous shit is happening.
Right, and they keep thinking...
It's all true. And they're being honest about it. Most people that are being interrogated lie.
Yeah, the detective keeps, like, turning to his assistant and being like, can you please look up if this actually happened? Here's what he just told me. And every time she comes back and she's like, yeah, that really happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one point where he's like, everything you've said up until this point would be really difficult for me to prove one way or another. But this, I can go and check the traffic light. Are you sure you want to say this?
Right.
Because if you're lying about this, then we've got you.
Yeah.
And they're both like, yeah, definitely, that's what happened. And it is.
Yep.
Which is pretty ridiculous, but in the case of this, true.
I don't know. There were, I think, a few too many times where they get out of something really easily, and the script kind of makes a joke out of it, which I think you can get away with that maybe once, hang a lantern on it, as they say. Just like call out the fact that it's ridiculous and move on, especially in a really silly comedy like this. But it did it, I felt like, several times where it should have been a really difficult situation.
What do you mean? You mean like the border crossing? Or?
Like the border crossing, because they have to go into Canada to pick up their winnings for the bet. And yeah, they get stopped at the border on the way back. There's a dead guy in their car, and they still manage to get away with it. And when they were actually cashing in the bet, they were all worried, like, oh, how are they going to give us the money? Is it going to be a check, or like, how are we going to actually cash it and split it up? And they get there, and the guy's just like, here's a bag of cash. And then they're like, oh, that was a lot easier than we thought. So there were just like one too many, I think, of those type of moments.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you do it once, I think I'm okay with it.
Right.
And you just kind of admit how ridiculous it is. But yeah.
Yeah, on one hand, I agree with you. It becomes almost a little repetitive in a way. On the other, it's kind of funny. Like, everything is so easy for them, but they're so dumb that they just keep dying or killing each other.
Maybe that's why you can do that. Yeah, you have to just lower the bar a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a whole lot of substance to it, but it's, like, appropriately absurd.
It was a funny script, but, I was thinking about it, and there are a lot of funny scripts like this that are funny in the same way. I mean, where, like, it reminded me a lot of Move That Body, this other comedy that we read, which I thought that one was actually really good. But that was because the jokes in that one were just extremely funny to me. At least it was just my taste, I guess. But even that script and this one, the jokes to me are kind of like punchline type jokes.
In that.
Or just like, well, in both, I think. It's a similar kind of humor going on, where it's like sort of a one-liner or a setup and a payoff, and it happens really quick, but it's kind of just like jokes, like you would see on a TV show. But to me, I think it reaches a new level, and neither of these scripts really got there. If the humor stems more directly from the characters, and I know that like the way they talk and the things they're saying, it does have to do with the type of character they are, but I mean more like their actions, which to me, most of the actions here were just like really, really stupid, and that's why they were funny. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't something specific to one of the characters or the other. They were all just doing really stupid things. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I see what you're saying.
To me, it's funnier on like a deeper level if it stems from the characters. And to me, most of the humor I got out of this was, like that line you were talking about, like, no, don't worry, I'm not going to kill him. And they cut to, he's dead. Stuff like that.
Yeah. I found this much funnier than Move That Body. I found Move That Body was inconsistent tonally, and the jokes were more like separate punchline jokes. What I liked about this was that everything about it was absurd, and everything about it was stupid. So the stupidity that came from it was almost like a thematic stupidity.
Interesting.
Like, it kind of reminded me a little bit of, now it's not nearly as effective as this movie, which I think I like it a lot more than most. Consider it one of the Coen brothers' better films, which is Burn After Reading.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which, that is like a high watermark of just, everyone's dumb, aren't we fucked? How did we get here? We don't know.
Nobody knows what's going on.
Doesn't matter now.
The end of that movie is so great.
So good.
Where J.K. Simmons is like a government worker, and he's kind of summing up the entire plot in his case file. And he's like, so what did we learn here? And the guy's like, I don't know. I don't think anything. Nothing really. And then it just like ends, and that's the end of the movie.
Oh, and then before that, there was like talk of someone going to Venezuela or some country that they can't extradite from. And he's like, should we try and stop him? He booked a ticket to Venezuela. Oh, yeah. And J.K. Simmons is like, no, let him go. What the fuck?
Yeah.
get him out of here.
One less person to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie is great. And it's very much in the same vein. It's like an ensemble cast of bumbling.
But those characters are more sharply drawn. I think the humor is stronger.
Definitely.
And the Coen brothers imbue it with a lot more depth, I think, than is exhibited here.
Yeah, I still liked Move That Body more than this one.
Yeah.
I was laughing out loud a lot at that script more than I usually do. I guess it's just you can't account for taste. I don't really have that much else to say here, I don't think.
No, I mean, you could criticize it for just how blatantly they lift the framing device from the Usual Suspects.
I mean, I don't think it's just The Usual Suspects. I don't think that movie, invented that technique of, interrogating someone and then they could become the sort of the narrator.
Yeah, and I guess it's different because he's making stuff off of the wall, but I does recall that.
They get away a little easily at the end, too. That's another one of...
The cop basically just lets them go because he thinks they're fun young kids.
Yeah. Oh, the very end, though, I thought this was kind of nice. That little tag at the end.
What was that?
That scene at the very end with the kids? Did you miss that? Right there.
Oh, yeah, I did miss that.
Yeah, there's
oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a page after the end of the script.
I didn't read that.
It says the end, but then if you keep scrolling down, there's one more page. This is the equivalent of, one of those little hidden scenes after the credits. And it's a bunch of kids in class waiting for their teacher to show up, but we don't even know which of the teachers it is, but clearly it's one of the ones from the story because they're not at work the next day. Mm-hmm. And there are two kids in the back that kind of see what's happening, and they're like, I don't think this teacher is going to show. We should just bail. And it's sort of a circular thematic thing of these two might be a younger version of Laura and Trey.
Yeah.
And they're about to go find their own adventure, and I thought that was a really nice little touch.
I mean, I hope, yeah. Also, I totally thought / hoped / contemplated that being a rule, that you could just leave class if after 10 minutes the teacher didn't show up.
That's what everyone says, right? That's what I heard that in college too.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you don't ever have to be there. When you're a kid,
in college, definitely.
In college, you definitely don't. In high school, you're gonna get in a little bit of trouble, but it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the fear of God is put in you.
I would have never. I was a very uptight high schooler. Are we ready for verdicts already?
Yeah. Well, let's talk first about the Great Albums podcast.
Yeah.
Can we talk about them again?
Yeah, we mentioned them last week, but they did a really nice shout out for us, and so I think we can do better.
Yeah. I listened to an episode of their podcast based off of one of my favorite albums.
Well,
and I really enjoyed it.
Let's back up, because I had reached out to them because I was kind of looking for other movie podcasts to just make friends with, podcast friends. But they happened to be reviewing one of my very favorite albums. And I wrote into their show, and they read my email on their show. And so check them out. It's thegreatalbums.com, and Bill and Bryan are the hosts.
They have a lot of episodes. They're going back several years.
Yeah, pretty much.
You can find one, I'm sure, that...
Whatever your taste in music is, you can probably find an episode that you're going to like.
They're on iTunes. That's where I found them.
They're both very knowledgeable about music.
Musicians themselves.
Yes. And we're going to try and do more of that in the future, sort of reaching out to other like-minded podcasts.
That are good. Like the Great Albums podcast.
Yes.
So you said what their website was, and that they can be found on iTunes.
Right.
We also have a website. Can you believe that?
Nice segue.
It's OSPodcast.com. We have an email address. It's info@OSPodcast.com. Actually, we read this script because one of our listeners emailed us.
Right, this was a request.
Yeah, from one of our listeners named Ken, it's always exciting to get emails. So
yeah,
info@OSPodcast.com. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. Facebook.com/OSPodcast. I never say the URL for YouTube because it's too long.
It's not just youtube.com/.
No, you need a lot of subscribers for that.
Oh, so really? I didn't know it worked like that.
If y'all want to subscribe and then help us get there, then maybe I can start saying that. For now, you can
just search for the Off-Screen Podcast on YouTube, I guess, right?
Also search for us on Stitcher, Twitter, @OSPodcast.
I think that's everything.
And last but definitely not least, iTunes.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Very cool. So verdicts.
Okay. I'm passing on both.
Okay, I'm gonna give both a consider.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, you need to finish the cataloging of all our verdicts, because I really am curious about some of this. Like, I wonder if you are more favorable on comedies and I am more on dramas, or vice versa. I kind of would have thought that you would have been more of a drama guy.
I don't think it's that. I don't know if we can break it down that way. We'll see.
Maybe,
we'll
maybe
see.
not.
I'll trust me. I'll finish this soon. I'll try and do it tomorrow.
I'm just curious.
I'm looking for an apartment, and it's very not good.
Yeah.
There's not very many apartments out there.
If anyone has an apartment, right into the show. Preferably in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Actually, has to be in Los Angeles.
Has to be. Okay.
Has to be. Well, mandatory.
Next week?
Next week.
We're going to read a script called The Shallows by Anthony Jaswinski. A mere 200 yards from shore, surfer Nancy is attacked by a great white shark, with her short journey to safety becoming the ultimate contest of wills.
Cool. Actually, the draft we're going to be reading, it's still titled In the Deep, if that matters.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But it's coming to theaters, that's The Shallows.
Right. It'll be in theaters the end of June.
Awesome.
Okay.
Solid.